Yo, what's up, world? This is Dane Tomas, and you're listening to the Dane Tomas podcast. Every week, I talk to experts, weirdos, new friends, and old ones about everything from magic to business to creativity and human awakening. So, strap yourself in, lay back and relax, cause we're heading straight for the black hole.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say the ladies and germs, which is a total Tim Ferriss ripoff. I don't know why he says it, but it's stuck in my head because I listen to him. But okay, human beings, hi, welcome to the Dane Tomas podcast. Today is a very special episode. We got Tyran Mowbray and Paisley Heart, two good buddies of mine, and we're going to talk about a variety of stuff around the spectrum of masculinity, magic, gender, sexuality, identity, a bunch of that stuff. Paisley Heart just gave me his bio at great duress because he claims to have no identity, but basically I would describe him as a shape-changing wizard. That's what I'm going to call you.
Fuck yeah.
And Tyran Mowbray is a becoming very well-known men's coach, sometimes dabbling with the moniker, the shameless sex god, but we can talk about that. He's like Chris Hemsworth's more rugged brother. And both of these guys are guys that I respect a lot. And we have a lot of talks and chats about gender, men, fucking trends, spirituality, yada, yada, yada. I think we're going to call this episode something along the lines of like magic made me gay, or going gay for magic, or something like that.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
And so it's not going to be facilitated. I'm just going to open it up and we'll back and forth. And if it stalls, I'll ask questions, but I think we can handle this threesome quite well. Welcome.
We have in the past.
Hey, we're off to a good start. Yeah. Actually,
Thank you,
I do
Mr.
have a
Dane
place.
Tomas.
Thanks, bro. I do have a place I'd like to start, and that is Paisley. You kind of started this in a way because, you know, I see you as kind of representing the kind of creative and art world more, and
That's
kind
how
of
we started off. Yeah,
have been coming more into the Tantra world and so on, which I would say Tyran and I are more sitting on that side of things, even though all these worlds seem to be slowly blending. And you brought up this thread of, you know, you've been on a journey with sexuality and homosexuality and gender fluidity and so on. And so have we, but ours has largely taken place inside ritual containers. And you have a whole piece about that. And so maybe we can start there. Like, you start with the question you threw at me, and we can maybe go from there.
Okay, so yeah, I think where this stemmed from was the day I posted on the gram of straight men getting sexually intimate in temple spaces and calling it sacred soul connections, and the art weirdos making out on stage or behind the camera and saying it's like artist revolution activism. Both identify as straight. Like, and essentially asking like, are they in a temple closet on a stage closet? You know, is this the like the 2020 closet?
So like, and I know you're a provocateur, so it's kind of almost, we can't take anything at face value. You know,
it's just a question. It's just a question.
It's just a question.
That's where we all meet. Let's be honest.
It is that question is a beautiful crossover where we all meet, because I feel like, you know, compared to some people, I will be exploring the edges of sexuality really, really far. You know, like if I'm in a business world, they're like, what the, you know, like this whole dark wizard thing, you know, sticking crystals up your asshole was like one of my business mentors made that up about me as a joke, like 6 years ago. And I would message him every now and then going, you know, that's all come true since then, right? You know?
Yeah.
But then if I hang with you or chat with you, I'm like, oh, I'm straight ass. You know? Conservative, homophobic, fearful, really in a narrow box, you know? And it's partly true and partly not true.
Yes. Subjective.
Maybe, it's subjective, but maybe you could tell us about your journey of late, because you've transformed somewhat.
Yeah. Well, I guess, what do you specifically want to know on that journey? Because I could go into the temple space, or I could just go where I'm currently at. Like, what is it that you want to know before because I could go on, I could just take up the rest of the 50 minutes of this podcast telling you.
It's fine. We won't let you do that.
Well, I feel like we had that conversation just the other day on our WhatsApp thread. So like, let's, you know, I'm just going to go. I'm going to interject here.
Yeah, go. Jump in.
I am the atypical Australian bloke that grew up playing footy. I was a bricklayer. I, you know, worked in the mines. This is your like fundamental base level masculine man that grew up in Australia. That's my identity, has been my identity for a long time. And then the first time I even got remotely close to, let's say, some form of gay, homo, erotic experience was at a retreat I was at. And I received a sacred spot massage, which is a finger in the anus, in the anus, in the bum. And it was framed beforehand. And I was so excited by it because I had so much fear around, what if I got a finger in my bum and I liked it and I really liked it and I liked it so much that I wanted to do it again? What does that mean for my identity? What does that mean for me as a man, you know? Because there's so much taboo in the football scene, in the mines, in the construction areas where all I grew up from, that like, you were gay. That was it. You're a faggot. You're a faggot. You're gay. That's it. You're less of a man. You're put there. Like, that was immediate. Now, don't get me wrong. The world has changed, and gay and homo men and bisexual men have definitely become more socially acceptable. But those types of men that I grew up with, it's like, you can be gay, just be gay over there. You know, it was very much like, I don't care if you're gay, just stay over there. You know, don't be gay with me or near me. You know, so there was still a distancing. Anyway, I had that, and it was the most liberating experience of my life. I loved it. It was phenomenal. I had my legs behind my head, screaming for the woman to go more, deeper. And on the other side of that, it was so liberating to be like, because my experience was, one, firstly, I realized how unconsciously I had penetrated women my whole life. You know, I realized the sensitivity that it requires to be penetrated. So it was a huge up level in my experience of sexual intimacy with women. So it helped me connect with women better. And I realized I wasn't gay. You know, it was like, yes, I like this. Yes, I love this. And I'm not gay. As I progressed to play with that edge more and more, I've had sexual experiences with men because I've asked myself, well, hang on, if that experience, if that experience, I had that, boom.
Yeah.
Was like, hang on, that made me question my reality and my identity. And it was like, oh, if that's not real, if I can have a finger in my bum and that doesn't make me gay, and it doesn't make me straight either, and it doesn't whatever, it's just like, well, then what is real and what is not real? And that's when I started to really get a bit nervous around the whole gay, straight, bisexual thing. And I have interacted with men sexually in temple spaces, on these retreats or in workshops or whatever, in the name of experience, because it's safe, right? And if I do it there, I'm just trying something, and, you know, and whatever. But the moment I step out of that container back into my world or back into the world, there's a part of me that's just like, nah, you know, and there is a separation. And I know that's what your original question was about. So
cool.
You know,
yeah.
That's where, for me, where the identity thing starts to really come in.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I can answer your question now off the back of that, Dane, is like where I am at is, and where I've been, but just more and more pushing it to the forefront, is bringing that temple space into real life, you know, like because I am the gay guy, but I'm also the straight guy. Like, I am trying to find that place on the spectrum where I can be both. I can be queer and hetero. I can be this and that, like, creating safety on both sides, because like the more I hang out with queer people, I'm fucking like, a lot of queer people don't like straight people. They have like whatever you want to call internalized version of against straight people. And same with straight people, like, but it's subtle. No one, like, I'm not hanging out with people that are actively like doing hate crimes or derogatory terms, but there's both, like, there's medicine on both sides. And I'm trying to figure out how to be the bridge, the pillar between two. And this also leads into which we'll get into later, is trying to find that bridge into the spirituality and personal development world, because of the queer community. I don't see very much in there, and have the minority situation that comes with more trauma. But what I'm trying to dance is to find that side of me, and I've identified as sexually fluid for a decent time now, but like more than anything, I'm like, before this year I was more like a bi-curious dude if I was going to fit under any label. But now this year I've actually been actively dating men. I've been with non-binary people, so I'm like slowly falling into the like pan label if I was going to be anything. But I'm just trying to figure out how to be labelless in this and not have to fall into any category, because there's this dogma and conditioning and stories and shit that just goes with all of them. It's like, can I be all of them, none of them, and individually each of them?
Love it. So I've established that Tyran is the blokiest guy here and you're the gayest guy here.
Yeah, cool.
Currently, that's the points we're holding just for this conversation.
So far, what can happen by the end of this?
Any minute now. Switch any minute now. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's been interesting for me because, you know, I remember getting annoyed and being like, why do you want everything to just gay up so hardcore? You know, what's the agenda here, you know?
Yeah,
it's almost
I have a gay agenda.
A gay agenda. You do have a gay agenda. And
I do.
And I don't think it's a bad gay agenda. And it's funny we're even using that phrase, because I feel like it's like pinching it from a mainstream sort of conservative point of view, which obviously, if anyone hopefully knows us, we're not. I refuse to hold that point for, you know, I don't really want to be that guy out of this conversation. It's I guess my position has been this mixture of, you know, you guys are familiar with my work and my path, but it's largely been around deconditioning and magic and manifestation are kind of the two poles of what I'm give a fuck about, you know, and that's look like building the spiral and creating tech for deconditioning kind of mental emotional stuff, and then living my life in such a way as whenever there's a block that's stopping me from doing or being or having something that I want, I will investigate it, work with it gradually to the best of my ability, grind it down or reduce it, you know, and work through with it. And areas like wealth and money were a huge area of shadow that I worked on hardcore and kind of over a long time made some difference. Sexuality has been one of the other biggest ones. And it's interesting how far you can go on, say, the tantric journey without necessarily challenging, let's say, heterosexual identity, you know? But at a point, if you keep going, and this is what's happened to me, is you start to hit the edges of like, oh, well, like, you know, me and this guy here with this woman and the three of us are kind of dropping into some erotic merging. Well, I don't mind if I touch him, you know, that's the very early stage. Whereas like the straight guy threesome is like, bro, you stay on that side of the chick, I'll stay on this side of the chick. And it's more like, like a V connection, you know? And because the kind of tantric and shamanic sort of communities and scene that I've been part of, it's beyond that. It's more about merging into love and merging past identity blocks. Eventually, even though it's from where you've been sitting, it looks like a hetero framing. For me, I came from the rap world, you know, as a battle rapper, is the most hyper masculinized, like, you know, I literally had a career of calling people faggots on stage. And it was only the wave of rappers after me where any of them even questioned homophobia. Like, I was part of a whole era where, like, I don't really agree with that, but it's kind of the protocol of the art form. So I'm just going to call this dude, emasculate this dude in every way that I can in this culture, and taking away his prowess with women and emasculating him is probably 80% of what I'm going to be doing in every rhyme that I'm going to drop. And the homophobia that's embedded in that, you know, it's so interesting how that carries over from, like, you know, for a period before I got expelled, I went to a boys' school. Everything was like, such and such is gay, such and such got caught wanking, this teacher is fucking that kid, oh, you're a homo, you know, that was just thick and fast. And then where did I find myself? Underground hip hop culture, possibly even more homophobic than that, you know? And then I kind of found myself into like dating the spiritual chicks and going to like ecstatic dance, and all of my first spiritual girlfriend's friends would come and hug me, and I'm like, is this dude gay? Why is he fucking touching me? You know, why the fuck? And she'd be like, what the hell's wrong with you? I'm like, well, you just don't do that where I'm from, you know? And then a year later, I'm hugging everyone. Male or female, doesn't matter. But even that was like, if that guy touches me again, I'm going to fucking bottle him, you know, was the world I'd come from. To then like, okay, we all love each other. We're all beautiful. Everyone hug. A hug is just hello, you know, this is like me like 7, 8 years ago, into eventually Tantra, and eventually, you know, still largely a heterosexual framing of the cosmology, where the masculine and feminine are the big two elements everyone's working with. And the unquestioned sort of sense is that, you know, men associate with the masculine and women associate with the feminine, classic 90s David Data sort of model. And then being in that world, I've watched that gradually breaking down, you know, and particularly at, say, at an event in Melbourne, there will be more gay people. There will be a few kind of gender neutral people coming in each time. So gradually that's having an effect on those containers. But it was interesting for me to talk to people like you and like others that are spending time in the kind of queer scene, who to them, the Tantra scene is uber, like reinforcing of heterosexuality. And I'm like, oh, that's the place that I know that is most breaking that down. You know, that is the melting pot where eventually, if you start to integrate to your feminine, you start to not be so, as a male, you start to be so less obsessed with women are going to give you that. And it starts to be less of a threat that you would have a connection with a man, or like kiss a man, or, you know, all those such things start to happen. But I guess what is clear for me is, you know, I'm at no point really desiring to become gay, you know? I'm desiring to become less constrained within a straight jacket. Straight jacket, you know?
Rapper guy.
You know, or any other rigid construct. And like, you know, that is included in quote unquote temple spaces, kissing other men, touching cocks. What that has become really not a big deal gradually. And then the next level to was like, yeah, but fuck a man, that's still kind of like an edge. Like, it's still something I'm like, okay, in the right context, I could be into that, but it's not really. And, you know, like my wife and other women that I know are just loving pushing people like me and Tyran into, when you know, Tyran's ex, okay, you're going to suck his cock tonight. I'm like, get back the fuck up. You know? Don't push me. And I would just kind of close, you know?
Yeah.
But in the right circumstance, that energy can come in. But for me, typically, it's when I'm not in my identity. You know, it's when I'm Dane, I'm a male-bodied human. It's like, I'm just a being, you know? I'm a genderqueer wizard dragon, and anything could happen.
Because I have this thing with you, Paisley, that like you are so deep in that queer, artistic, creative world. And I love it because you teach me so much, like through reading your posts or when we chat or whatever, that I don't have any fucking concept of, right? Like, you tell me, like, if I was to identify with a thing, it would probably be more this like gay, queer, but, and I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, you know, there's still a part of me that's catching up to the like gender fluidity and non-binary. Like, I understand the concepts of that, but there's still a part of me that doesn't really fully understand. So for there to be other labels as well. And I think, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong here as well, my belief system is like people that created those labels were trying not to be labeled, but all they've done is create more labels to fit under. So I don't really even understand the concept of having more labels to identify as, if actually what I believe we're all trying to do is become unidentified with an identity. It's like I don't fit that, I don't fit that, I don't fit any, I don't want to fit, I want to be. And that's what I feel like the common thread between the three of us is. It's like, what does homosexual, heterosexual, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, what do they all have in common? They're all sexual, right? Like the common theme is sexuality. We are sexual beings. It's our identity, our ego that wants to attach a name to like, because it's a man body and a man body, or a female body and a female body, or I have a penis but I don't feel like a man, therefore it's the part of us that wants to create a reason behind, rather than just be like, I don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. I'm a sexual person and I like to go where the energy goes. But yeah, we have to collapse the identity in order to get to that. But please feel free to tell me anything I fucked up there.
No, or like, that's the fascinating thing with the labels thing is like, like for me, when I was growing up, I always had this fluidity about me, but I never, like, all I knew up until I was like 23 was there was gay and there was straight. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll just like I'm straight, I guess. Like, then at 23, I found out what bisexuality was, and I was like, fuck, like, you can like both, and that's like a thing, like, great. And then I've continued to expand past that. But, you know, like, for instance, this big sexuality thing that you're just talking about that's, I guess, essentially coming back to that post I talked about is like, yeah, why do people that actively do things that aren't straight have to have that safety net of I'm straight? Why can't it just, like, why is that safety net needed? So just think about the people that are a minority, how much they need that safety net of a smaller group of people. You have this massive collective of people going, I'm straight, and you're like, yeah, sweet, me too. Like, I fit right in, no one will notice me, I suck dick over there, but if I just blend back in, I'm straight, it's fine. But everyone else that has all these other new identities coming out, the asexual, transsexual, there's a minority. So at least if you step in with these people, it's going to be way safer. But of course, my whole thing is to rid of. But I think the main thing is that we can't rid of anything until we acknowledge what the other side of the spectrum is. We can't just, from a straight perspective, everyone go, okay, and then drop the labels. It's like, yeah, but people have lived this identity of that is quite painful and have been through a lot, and their stories haven't been heard and sympathized and empathized and understood and embodied to go, oh, you know, don't worry about it. We're all fluid now, you know?
I think it's so interesting what you're saying, because I've thought about this as well, and it's like there's two sides that I'm seeing. Is one is it is a privileged position to be like, cool, I'm going to deconstruct my identity now because I've kind of climbed up to a certain level of integration, success, ease, okay. I'm pretty okay with myself to be a person who's going into tantric containers and doing all this crazy shit. Like, I've already won the game of life, basically. Like, I have wealth, I have connections, I've climbed up from disempowered to empowered over the last 20 years. And it's funny, interestingly, in the last few years, I realized that I'm privileged, you know, even though I have a whole piece on that, but let's say that I just accept that at face value for right now. And so I get that there is going to be a level required of people to claim an identity before they move past identity as a thing. I definitely think that. Then on the other hand, I think we're in this kind of interesting world now, which is like just fucking worships trauma, you know? It's like the more trauma you've got right now, the better that is, right? Like, as this, we've kind of been in maybe a more, I don't know, like right-wing world for a long time of like, you know, you get what you fucking fight for, and then I feel like we're in this era of this thing is swinging back where like everyone has to be included in everything and everything has to be made safe. And, you know, I'm going to sound real Joe Rogan, and like, you know, you get a trophy even if you come last because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, because we don't want hierarchy. That's not nice, because everyone should always belong. And really, no one should ever really feel a bad feeling, you know, because it's just not nice, you know? And I think it's very the artist, and the artist in me, it's interesting. I'm writing songs and I want to go all the way into the story. But the other part of me is like, story is something, my magical self is like, story is what you make up to make sense of it all. And it's like, does everyone's fucking story have to be heard, you know? Does everyone have to be like, there's every statement gonna, well, as a you know, as a cis white male between the age of 40 and 65 who is in the tax bracket of such and has a predilection for vegan food, I really want to, it's like, fuck, dude, just speak. Do you have to qualify everything with your, well, as a, a 1/16th Welsh, 1/48th Indigenous truck driving lesbian, I just really need to speak here. And it's just like, just say your name's Sarah. We don't fucking care, like, so there's this whole piece of me of like, I feel like there's a crystallizing of identity that comes from people being a little over infatuated with their wounds,
Yes. Like we could go back and forth on this for ages, and that was a part of the recent
thing. The part of the beef or the polarity, I think.
Yeah.
Not that there really is one, but
no.
Where it was sitting.
And like, and this is a big thing because I've obviously been very vocal about this stuff as of recent, and I get what's going on for you because I'm getting in a lot of fucking trouble by the people that I'm speaking, like I'm speaking my truth, and then the truth that people are having a bit harder time in that story, like, hey, why are you fucking speaking on behalf of us? Like, you don't know. And I'm like, fucking true. Educate me. But in saying that is like,
mate, you only been gay for a month.
yeah, exactly. You think you're the leader just because if you fucking did a status about it.
Because you got Instagram.
Because you got more followers than us. But actually is like, just the example of like having to claim your identity, right? Is, for instance, we talk about these, the spiritual personal development world, Tantra, where it's quite revolutionary and for your personal development growth, is of course someone that is like transgender, they need to say, hi, I'm Bob and I identify as like she, her, or as they, them, because of the masculine, feminine polarity is so damaging. Like it hurts a lot. Like we get the privilege, for instance, of just like getting to play with, I have my inner woman, us three, Certain men actually feel like that and have been fucking going through the most because of that, and no one has understood them over and over and over, and it's just been repressed, and then it's like, yeah, no, it's just feminine and masculine, you play with it between the two, and masculine is he, like, as much as a lot of us go, yes, masculine and feminine are separate from gender, I still see everyone say, the masculine, he thinks this. The feminine, she feels that, and continue to say it's not gender, but he, she. And people like, oh, but I don't identify with that he, she. And it's so entwined to gender, for instance, that you can't like, and thinking about the trauma included of a lifetime of that. As someone that created an emotional clearing modality, like, how much people can't see past the story. They're just repressed and pushed back over and over. So when you're trying to help and go, try this, but in this way that we work with this heteronormative way.
Yeah, but I really disagree that it's heteronormative. What I think it is it may be one of the tools that helps the heterosexual world begin to integrate to a higher degree of fluidity, which then means the masses, which are largely, at least for now, identified as heterosexual or grouped in that, the more those people start to get embodied references of receptive and penetrative qualities within themselves, regardless of what their label is, the more they'll be able to accept anyone who doesn't fit the blueprint that they, because the thing that's here that is in common is we all basically fitted, Now, I didn't fit in at all. I have huge tons of trauma around outcast and being at war with society and this and that and so on. But it wasn't because of my gender and it wasn't because of my ethnicity. So I don't get the points for those things. But I nearly killed people because of how bad I didn't fit in, like I fucking stabbed someone with a knife because, so I had this whole journey of like, I have marginalizations that don't fit because I'm like a white dude with money and confidence now. So it's like, so there's a real difficulty in accepting all that stuff. But what I do see is someone who's running those containers, and I more mean like the shamanic end. There's plenty of neo-tantra that is literally reinforcing masculine and feminine. Like if you go to Agama, the women are called Shaktis, you know? So it's literally like spiritual materialism, you know? It's like reinforcing that concept worse. But what I see amongst my peers that have begun to obtain deeper embodied integration of their masculine and feminine, air quotes, is they are more able to relate to experiences outside of their category. And so I, you know, my main thing isn't necessarily, well, does this, you know, my path hasn't been, okay, does this set of tools fit the percentage of people that don't identify to a gender? It's more like, will this set of tools help crack open the construct of gender for the majority of humans?
Yes.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
But it's a slower journey, because like if you look at Tyran and I, who are both crossing this line, the homo hetero line, you know, a little bit, not in the way you have, which is jump into that category in the outside world, but more from the safety of, well, I'm basically straight, but I kiss my mate sometimes in a temple. I've had my dick sucked a couple of times by a dude, but it was in temples. And there was a chick there, so don't worry about it.
They swapped really quickly, so I didn't know whose was what.
That literally,
it's like, I just had my eyes closed. I had my eyes closed.
But that, you know, that's edge play, right? And that's edge play from people who, despite other challenges we had, gender identity wasn't the primary challenges that Tyran and I faced growing up, you know? So the fact that we are working with this, it's going to be a less urgency than like, okay, there's a whole society that does this. Fuck, I don't even fit that. So in a way, the way I look at it is like, gay people and trans people have been kind of forced into super hardcore tantric practice of holding the other position that, like, you know, you can grow up and be in your 20s and have never met another like trans person. It's like hardcore shadow work that you've landed on a planet. It's like, no, you don't exist. We all know, look, normal people, men wear pants, you know? And it's like, and so like, I see that, you know, but I do feel that these containers are doing something valuable, which is more accelerating where humanity is at in terms of its relationship to masculine and feminine. And ultimately the end game of Tantra is androgyny, you know? Like if you look at a classic Buddha statue, he's so gentle and delicate and beautiful. It almost doesn't look like a man or a woman at all. It's like, well, that's because it basically isn't anymore. I need a few more workshops first, though.
Well, I found I feel like I'm not being seen or heard.
Go.
Tyran's feminine would like to be seen.
Just sharing a little bit around the part of, I remember we had on your podcast, Paisley, Curious Conversations, we had a conversation with two other guys, one from America, one from England. And, you know, we were all pretty hyper masculine in the sense that we grew up in very typical masculine environments. And, you know, like I was the edgy one out of those three that had done weird kooky shit, you know? And you asked me a question at the end of that around like, what do I do to include the minorities of the world? And I feel like, kind of going off the back of what Dane just shared, I don't really do a lot to include the minorities. I believe what I try to do is support the majority to be more inclusive of the minorities. You know, it's like they can come and do, I'm running my current mentorship, and I've had actually quite a lot of people ask if trans or gender fluid or whatever people can join. And I'm really sitting with the answer to those questions. But like my journey of like, you know, a gay man came up to me, I'd be like, oh, I don't know what to do right now. He's going to try, you know, and it's like, I had contraction in my body because I didn't feel safe in my own system. And my journey through sexuality, Tantra, spirituality, consciousness, like just acknowledging the softer, more, I'm a very sensitive man, you know, like I love crying in romantic movies. I love doing delicate, beautiful, romantic things. And I had to suppress that part of me just to fit into that fucking man world of like being a bricklayer and going to the footy club and, you know, being that hyper masculine, over desensitized type of thing, and cracking through my layers of resistance to get to, like, regardless of whether it's masculine or feminine or light or dark or whatever, it's like, I just want to be myself, you know. I want to be able to cry when I want to cry. I want to be able to light candles and in my bedroom and have incense burning. And I want to be able to like hug my brothers if I feel upset. And, you know, I feel like a lot, like we are focusing on sexuality in this topic as well, but even like that's like a huge end spectrum for a vast majority of men in the world that have the experiences of me and Dane and even you to some extent. It's just like, before we even get to getting a cock in our ass, can I just fucking cry? Can I just cry on my brother's shoulder? Can I just, you know, relax into the sensitivity that my brother can hold me and I can collapse into a pit of despair and grief and pain, or for whatever reason, my girlfriend left me, this happened, my dad died, whatever it is, can I just collapse into that and be held? And I feel like just that alone, and teaching men that is okay and that's acceptable, get masculine and feminine in those experiences, just being an expression of authenticity with emotion, whatever that is. And then like, yes, okay, a little bit further down the path, which many of the queer, non-binary, gender fluid, like that, they supernova past that, you know, like they're, if you wanted to get kind of bit kooky and esoteric, they're like advanced souls that have been brought on the earth to develop the advancement of our collective consciousness, to eradicate the polarity that we are experiencing on a mass generalized, you know, society that's created where we are. And it sucks. Like it would suck for them, and I can't, and all I can do is have compassion and like hear them and listen to them, but also stay true to myself and whatever that is. And I'm still learning. We were talking about this in the last conversation, like what the fuck is the truth? Like once I had a finger in my bum and realized I liked it, all of a sudden the truth started to not be true anymore. So then it's like, well, what is true? What is true? What is real? And that is that I get to choose what that is by going through experiences. You know, if I go sailing once on a sailboat, it doesn't make me a fucking sailor. Yet so many of us want to attach to the idea. It's like, if I have a finger in my bum, or I kiss a man, or I get fucked by a man, or I have a sexual experience with a man, I'm gay or I'm bisexual. And it's like, we have so much assimilation of like one experience or one thing means something, and it means a thing because a thing. And it's like that attachment is what in turn creates the trauma or the resistance or the whatever to even exploring something. So that's my 2 cents.
It's powerful, the point you're holding, you know, because what I hear in that is actually all those things that for largely the majority of male identifying humans that they feel they can't do, which is largely feel and emote. That's the source of homophobia, you know?
Yes.
It's like, if I was to become that thing over there, which has been demonized, you know, then I would be weak. And it's like this activation of like, and then the other men would take advantage. I would be not a warrior. I would be not a, whatever these kind of masculine values that have been coded in. I would not be able to represent those things. And, you know, it was really interesting. The first time I went to an all male kind of tantric initiation type event a couple of years ago. And I went with a friend, and we did a few days of it. And basically I probably touched about 12 cocks over that few days, you know? And I came out and we were driving back joking, and it's like, I don't know if I'm more gay or less gay. Right? Because what dissolved was the shadow of stories of what those actions would mean. And in a way I felt, and it was weird because all these are just categories, but it's like, I feel more masculine, but I also feel more safe around all men, regardless of their sexuality, because I'm in myself and I don't have stories about what if I did feel like touching someone's cock with consent? Well, that would mean that I touched the cock. That's all it would really mean. And also, and if I was gay, that wouldn't matter. That's not a bad thing. And so it all just started to dissolve. And it's like, if someone asked me if I'm straight, I'm kind of like, I wouldn't really claim that label, actually. And if someone said, are you gay? I'm like, well, no, I'm not gay, but I'm not gay. You know?
Yeah.
And so it's more like what I'm aspiring towards is just the softening of the boundaries of these identities. But I also, you know, I'm a hardcore deconditioner, and it took me this long to get from like, I'm very clearly a straight guy and I would never want to go and say, oh, actually, in the right context, I could probably fuck certain dudes and it would be amazing. And it's like, but there's a lot of factors will be required for my nervous system to be really at peace with that. And I've observed, fuck, that's a lot of deconditioning, like how hardcore that conditioning is, which, you know, I'm thinking it goes back to fucking Sparta or whatever, of like, we are not doing that because we would be weak. And it's like, well, we could never be weak. Whatever happens, don't be weak. Well, sucking cocks makes you weak. It's like, well, the Greeks don't agree. They like it. It's like, well, they've got different rules. We don't do it. You know, it's like where the fuck it came from. It's hilarious, really.
Well, yeah, that like essentially just saying that alone is something that I find is just very much needed, right? Is like, because I've been trying to, this is on my journey of trying to figure out where this bridge sits, because for instance, what Tyran says is like, no, I'm sticking to men's work and male-bodied people, and I'm teaching them how to get into their emotions. This is the privilege that I've had on my journey, is like, I became gayer with my spiritual growth and my deconditioning. I didn't be gay and then have all that conditioning to unravel too, because the journey would have been so much longer. I'm fucking grateful. You couldn't imagine, because shit comes up now, like just these things that even though I know like on a spiritual level, but I just take on these gay identities every once in a while. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm a fucking gay victim all of a sudden, and then I'm like, wait, no, I'm not, no, don't fall into that. So I definitely agree with Tyra, and like sticking that pillar is important, right? And throughout my identity, you know, I've been fluid for a very long time, and I would just drop subtle things on my platform as an influencer, right? Because I was like, okay, cool. How can I open this perspective, like the next layer of just feeling, but like, hey, fluidity is a thing. But Paisley's cool because he's got pictures of him hooking up with 2 chicks at the same time. Because I also do that. I have threesomes with girls and orgies and blah. And it's like, oh, if Paisley's like can do that for straight men, they're like, oh, maybe being gay isn't so bad because he looks pretty cool, right? And then just thinking about, and then I've gone way further down the road, but imagine someone like Dane and Tyran, you have a massive influence. How often have you told your influence that you've been with men, you know, like on your platform, and how much of an impact that actually does have, you know, like talking about these little things. And I just feel like in the community, this is about the closet thing in temple space, is like, I know temple is sacred and like exclusive to that moment, but I feel like a lot of the lessons that come out of there are like talked about, except for these little nuggets, you know, and I just know these nuggets could really make a massive change on, even doesn't mean that guys have to start sucking each other's dicks, but just to be like,
guys, you have to.
Yeah, you have
if
to.
You're serious about this work.
Yeah, you have to. And this comes back to my gay agenda, right? Is like, yes, I want to be an ally and help bridge, but also like I want to date dudes, and like, unfortunately for a lot of the gay community, they're stuck in trauma and maybe haven't got this spiritual expansion that I've had the privilege to go through. So I want the spiritual dudes to be like, oh yeah, I'm gay too now. So I can, because when I've had this abundance of beautiful women that have the same framework, the same language, the same understanding as me, that I can beautifully, deeply relate to. And I started dating guys through Tinder. I'm like, oh, this is this. Wow.
I'm gonna share with you like why men are afraid to do this, Paisley, right? And I tell you from my experience, like my social media account, my Instagram, I get dick pics. I get unsolicited dick pics from gay men because I am a free being that expresses my sexuality. And you're right, I don't really openly talk about connecting with men heaps. I definitely have. It's definitely on there. It's not like a common reoccurrence.
Yeah.
But even the fact that I put up, you know, artistic pictures of me naked in a bed, blah, 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 and talk about men's sexuality and how they're this and how that, like gay men send me unsolicited dick pics, right? And it's
regularly. Cracks me up.
Literally on a fucking regular basis, you know? And so I fully appreciate and understand your personal desire and the personal desire of many other gay men who, you know, want to explore and want to, you know, keep expanding and that. But like that reason right there is a very strong point as to why heteronormal men don't want to fucking go anywhere near this because they don't want to be attacked like that. And that's how they attack women, right? And I've learned, like, very rarely do I send unsolicited dick pics. I definitely send them, but mostly it's always in consent.
And mostly requesting them, Tyran, please.
Yeah, pretty much.
Please.
But it is, like I have, it's how a lot of men treat women, and it is, men don't want to be treated like that because their feminine aspect of themselves is so young, so immature, so scared, like, and this is one of the big issues that I guess we can maybe under or not see or not appropriate, because it's men are still trying to drop into any form of receptivity on a large scale. But you're absolutely right. Like I did a couple of posts on like gay, straight or bi, just using those three with Danny Redbard, and that went fucking pretty semi crazy just on that alone. But, one of the things that I did, I remember it was my birthday. I was in Israel, my ex-girlfriend, we took some MDMA, we made love all day in this beautiful place, and she made love to me with a strap-on. And it was the first time that I'd had that level of penetration, and it, like the MDMA definitely helped as well, but oh my God, it was like phenomenal. And I flew out that night back to Australia to go to one of my oldest mates' weddings, like my old footy mates. I used to go to the pub and be like, fuck, I'm Toey as a Roman sandal and pick up birds every weekend and all that. And, after about 6 ciders at the wedding, and they all know that I'm on this crazy weird journey and doing weird shit, and after I was like, all right, boys, I got something to tell you. And they were just like, you fucked a man, didn't you? And like they are almost fully prepared for me to say that. Like that's how open, and they're still very accepting of me. Most of them are accepting me of that. And I was like, no, but I did get, I know that people call it pegged, and I actually hate being called pegged. Like there's a part of me, it's like it makes me feel gross.
It's dominion. Yeah, it's because it's diminishing of what it is.
Exactly. And it's such a vulnerable state for a man to allow himself to get to that place and go to that place, and for it to be called pegging it's like it actually feels like the vast majority of our society doesn't actually even support that process to happen. So no wonder men are not even going to try and go there, But, as soon as I told them, like they dropped their beers, they spat everything. It was hilarious. They thought it was funny and they loved me. And it was, like, you're the straightest dude we know. And I was like, yeah, and I still am, like I'll still go to the pub and pick up someone, and it doesn't change who I am, It's not, and this is very hard for a large portion of us to get, men and women, But, as I step more and more into this, integrating this temple world into my everyday life, when I have the most women coming after me is when I'm dancing on the dance floor with one of my mates, like, me and Dane did it in Bali. We went to a conscious party and we got ridiculously unconscious, and there were just women everywhere. Well, yeah, you could say that.
But we were and undulating and stroking each other.
Hot.
There's just like 7 women around us gawking.
Yeah, it's a 2020 pickup line.
Exactly, and you've seen it also in some of the temple spaces we've hung out in, like when me and, I won't say his name.
Yeah, other people.
Other people. Like when we get together and it's just like the whole room is just like. And it's like, if you maybe I should do a post, like how to pick up women, hook up with your best mate.
I did that yesterday or the day before. It went epic. Well, right. I want to ask about, for instance, this unsolicited dick pic situation, because like I get them too, but like I don't want them from certain people, but sometimes I like them too. But I get a lot of unsolicited pussy pics as well. But one is like, I have a bit of a thing. I often say on my thing, like, if you want to do it, do it. Like, you're actually welcome. Like, this is a safe space if you need to get that energy off. Because I know what it's like to be a guy. I want to show my erect cock to everyone because it fucking looks great to me. But I want to say, for someone that's been in temple spaces, done a lot of work around cocks, you too, Dane, is like, what's the difference between receiving that and posting polarizing posts where you get a lot of hate on it? Why is a cock dirtier or worse than someone saying, fuck you, Tyran, you're a fucking pimp or a player or a toxic or whatever? What's the difference between that and someone sending a dick pic? like, I feel like in a mainstream society way, I get it. But for someone that's done a lot of temple work and loves cock as actually, like, I love cocks as a man. They're great. I love my own. I love your cock, Dane. I love blah. Is like, to receive an unsolicited dick pic, you receive unsolicited fucking hate mail and comments and all this from posting polarizing posts all the time. You're asking for that. Why? What's wrong with the cocks?
I mean, that seems like two very different things. And that's like, why is it's getting hit on in a bar by someone you don't want to be hit on the same as getting shouted at out of a car? And it's like, no, they're two different things. And you might have various triggers or no triggers around either one. You know, so I don't get no one sending me dick pics. Maybe they will after this. I don't really care. I think I would think of
everyone send Dane a dick pic.
Yeah,
definitely. You know, my VA will be looking at a lot of dicks. I don't really like getting sent messages.
Dane lives in a fucking cave.
The trauma of the dick pic will be like, that's another message.
Yeah.
For my VA to delete.
Yeah.
So I don't really care. Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
It's a tyrant.
When I first started talking about men's sexuality and working with men's sexuality, I got a lot of shadow stuff. I got a lot of gay guys or shadow, like, straight guys that wanted to explore their masculinity with a man, and it's like, actually, no, you're just trying to fucking take. And it took a lot of discernment and actually, like, getting it wrong to get into a place that felt good. But for me, I don't even give a shit anymore. Like, now, if I get an unsolicited dick pic, it's not an issue. You know, it was at the beginning, because I was like, oh my God, how fucking dare he think that I would be okay with that? You know, it's like this huge resistance. Like, what a fucking wanker. Like, you know, there was different layers of it. And now you're right, I fully understand. I'm just like, hey man, especially gay men, right? Because gay men have a lot of, like, they want to be loved. They want to be seen. I've worked with heaps of gay men. There's heaps of trauma in the gay world around being loved, being a top or a bottom. They have the same thing with the top and bottom. It's the same about being a man or a woman. They have the same, like, I don't know all the details, but I've worked with quite a few, and there's heaps of shit there as well.
So much shit.
No pun intended.
Hey.
Now, when I get an unsolicited dick pic these days, it's really mellow. It's just like, hey man, that's really inappropriate. I didn't ask for that. Can you please not send that to me? I appreciate your desire to be seen and heard, but I'm not sure at what point you thought that this was okay, but this is not okay. And if you why wouldn't you at least ask or say, like, hey, blah, blah, blah. It feels really, like, unfair for me to receive that from you without, you know. And so I reframe it in a way of, like, hey, I'm not trying to shame your sexuality at all, because I understand that we all want to be seen and heard, but do this with someone that you have a connection with, and that, you know, whatever.
Send it to Paisley. Send this to this guy.
At Paisley Heart _
Paisley Heart.
He'll pin it on the wall.
It's so funny, like some of the interactions of men are like, well, I'm just a dirty little gay boy, you know, and they put, and I was like, no, you're not a dirty little gay boy. You're a beautiful man that wants to be seen and heard, and you're looking for love, and you just don't know how to look for love, and this is your only way of doing it. And, you know, and these men quite often crack, like, just from that one thing of, like, that's true, I'm just looking for love. And it's like, that's all we're looking for. Every single person on this planet, doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, queer, non-binary, pan, trans, whatever. The reason that we have trauma, or think we have trauma, or want to create a story, is because we don't feel loved in whatever form of expression we want to put out in the world. And ultimately, masculine, feminine, gender aside, everyone wants to be loved. And if we can just actually just hold love in our own hearts and love each other for whoever the fuck they want to be, we don't need to resolve trauma. We don't need to resolve all the fuck. It's just, that's the simple answer. And I know it's very hard to do, but literally that's all anyone wants in this world is love.
How do you go? I think
love always wins.
Preach
love always
wins.
wins.
Hashtag always.
Men have hearts too.
Is that an hour? Did we just do an hour?
We just did an hour. I feel like our magic thread. Let's do another one on the magical stuff. You know, let's do a part 2.
Yeah,
I think we're going to
punches,
call
that's
this one Tantra Made Me Gay.
good. Yeah, Tantra made me gay. Fuck it. That's going to be triggering to both sides. That's great.
Yeah.
That's what you want, right? Inclusive triggering. That's what I go for.
Express your
Absolutely.
trigger with unsolicited dick pics to Dane, Tomas, or at Dark Wizard Media, or message me and I'll give you his WhatsApp number because that's where he actually receives messages.
Yeah, because he doesn't do social media anymore.
I got you.
That's dark.
Fuck. I love you guys. I
Love you both. I love you, Tyran.
I mildly like both of you.
I know,
Just jokes.
I know.
Love you both. Stoke, we did this. I feel like there's a good part 2 in the offing around more of a magical initiationary thread. If people that don't already know you are loving the vibe, where is the best place for them to follow you or to get more?
Tyran first.
Tyran Mowbray on Instagram, Tyran Mowbray on Facebook. That's where vast majority of my shit goes on. I do have a website. It's developing into a better website as we speak, but Instagram, Facebook, that's where all my shit goes. Yeah, check it out.
And if they look in the mirror and go, shameless sex god, shameless sex god, shameless sex god, you'll
pop up.
Exactly. They will just see an image of Ganesha in front of them, and all of a sudden everything will just dissolve, and they will become one with the universe and realize that that's the only way to be a shameless sex god is to have no identity.
Fuck,
amazing.
Right. That's my practice for tonight. You can find me at Paisley Heart _ on Instagram, Paisley Heart on Facebook, hellopaisleyheart.com for my website, and check out Curious Conversation. It is the #1 competing platform of Dane Tomas podcast. So, pick a side.
It's a dope podcast. You should listen to it. I say some really awkward things about cultural appropriation on the episodes. I'm still not sure if I agree with or not. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like this, please subscribe, share it, etc., etc. And we'll have more dopeness for you soon. Peace.
Peace.
Sticky moot.